cool costumes behind you. Those are awesome. Are they yours?
Some of them, but some of them are I share a dressing room.
They're beautiful. I love it.
It's the costume designer Leon. So yeah.
Amazing. So to start us off, Rock and Roll Man tells the story of the legendary DJ Alan Freed, as we all know, and you play a legend yourself in this show. So can you tell us a little bit to start us off about your role as Little Richard and what really drew you to the character?
So the role of Little Richard in this particular show, he plays Alan Freed's defense lawyer. And so, with him playing Alan Freed's defense lawyer, he's basically defending Alan Freed's record and humanity, in this particular show. But Little Richard, he is the innovator, originator, and architect of rock and roll, where during his time he never really received his due. I mean, people loved him, but you know, like he didn't receive his due until later in his life. And so what drew me to the role was I mean, just the fact that there hasn't been a show about Little Richard's story, and this is not about Little Richard at all. But it is his likeness, and it is like it, it's not about him, but anytime Little Richard's on stage, it's about him. Yeah. So what drew me to the role is this black queer man was one of the pioneers of rock and roll, which I think a lot of people think that Elvis or Buddy Holly, they were, the pioneers when they only stole from Little Richard.
So you were saying that he never really got his due, but here at 2023, you are doing that part in helping people learn his name and people hear what he did. How does that feel?
It's so much fun because he embodied joy. He embodied black queerness, and it's liberating. In the research of Little Richard, he was great at liberating others, but not so great at liberating himself. Because him being queer, he also, went back into the closet, which I can totally understand that. I mean, in the 1950s, being out, I mean, he was one of the only ones. I mean, I struggled with my sexual orientation as well. And so to, have him to share his likeness in 2023, it means a great deal, especially at this time when history is trying to be rewritten.
Absolutely. I think that's crucially important right now, especially for
Yeah.
people to go and see, because theater is such an escape, but it tells a story and it tells people
Yeah.
stories we need to be seeing. Um,
Yeah,
Little,
exactly.
Little Richard, in addition to being known for all of those brilliant things that you mentioned, is also known for his flamboyant performances, his influential music, and also just these brilliant outfits like the ones I see behind you. How did you approach
Mhm.
capturing his essence on stage and continuing his story? Was there any process behind that? Obviously, there was a process, but what was the process?
Yeah, I mean, there are two incredible documentaries about Little Richard. One is called I Am Everything, and the other one is called The King and Queen of Rock and Roll. And then there's also a book, an autobiography that Little Richard wrote, The Life and Times of Little Richard. So my approach was doing the research, reading his autobiography, watching the documentary, and then there are loads of so many interviews that Little Richard, has been recorded of Little Richard. And so my approach was more so to capture his essence, but not imitate him. Like I didn't want to do an imitation of Little Richard. I wanted to more so capture his essence and also be clear that his story actually lives in me. So his isms, all of that felt natural for me because there's such a parallel in our lives.
I love it. And I love the way you speak about him and his influence. You can tell that you really did your homework and you know so much about him. Now we touched on this a bit before, but Rock and Roll Man really explores the impact of Black artists on the rock and roll music scene. How do you think that this story really resonates with audiences today? And what do you hope that people learn from it?
I think it resonates with the music for one. I mean, is so catchy. It's so thrilling. I mean, like you and my generation are removed from this music, but the generation before, like they lived it. And I think our generation can totally appreciate it because it is what rock and roll comes from, right? And all the black artists who represent in the show, the actors playing the artists are absolutely dynamite. And so I think it's crucial just to really one pay homage. This show is entertaining, but it's also educational, which I think is a win-win. And so I think that everyone can take from that, the fact that Alan Freed, a Jewish man in the 1950s, he actually was an anti-racist. So, like we have a lot of these conversations post 2020, right, about anti-racist, but he was an anti-racist in the 1950s, where he would, really only play the original songs of rock and roll, which was mainly black artists, when all of his colleagues and other disc jockeys, they were playing the covers. And when he was asked, why do you only play the originals, not the covers, he said, to do anything otherwise is anti-Negro. And that was a bold statement from this Jewish man, Alan Freed, in the 1950s.
I love it, and I'm extremely glad that these stories are getting told,
Yeah.
especially in such a fun setting with this lively music, and it's entertaining. It's brilliant. So, as we were just saying, the music in Rock and Roll Man features classic rock and roll hits by so many legendary artists. Do you have any favorite songs to perform in the show? Do you have any favorite numbers?
um I guess my favorite is Tutti Frutti.
I
You
like the
know, Tutti Frutti, good booty.
name. I love it.
Yeah, Tutti Frutti would be my favorite. Because it's just everyone knows it, and like it's so much fun. Yeah.
I love it. Such a great song. And now you yourself are a veteran of the New York stage. Now, how does it feel to return to New World stages for this production? And are there any particular challenges or joys or just differences in general that come about with performing in an off-Broadway setting? Because you've previously appeared on Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, it's really wonderful to be, at New World Stages. I mean, I really like the venue, and it's also convenient, in Midtown. I think the challenges of an off-Broadway show, I mean, even Broadway, it's the finances. I mean, it just doesn't, it's a smaller house, so it's not going to pay as much. So I also own a wellness space called Core Rhythm Fitness, and so I basically train every morning, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then, sometimes I have rehearsals and then I'll do the show. So that is challenging because, like, Little Richard is high energy output, like high. And then also training and what I do is energy output. So I really have to be intentional with pausing and resting because it can be really exhausting. Though I think that's the challenge for me is to really finding time to rest because it's really exhausting.
I want to hear about your wellness space. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that to you and just the importance of wellness in everyone's everyday lives?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would be able to do this particular role or any role that I'm doing successfully if I was not so like grounded in wellness. And so the company that I started is called Core Rhythm Fitness, and is a company that specializes in mind, body, spirit integration for transformation. And so, people call it their fitness church because it's not just like a gym. It's a space of harmony that really creates wholeness, mentally, where we do grounding meditation, and every offering has Pilates, and then it goes into either, a high intensity, high output, energetic workout, or a strength workout. But it's more than just about the aesthetics. It's more, of like really empowering the mind and really building the body to be strong. I mean, we get to be strong, but the only way that we're going to find our strength is some resistance, And I mean, we found out through COVID that the people that were not so much affected by COVID were the people that were healthy. And so for me, wellness is about mental health as well as physical and spiritual health, so that we can be the best that we can be on stage, off stage, in our relationships, and otherwise.
I love that perspective because I think that a lot of people typically only think of aesthetics when they think of wellness. So I think
Yeah.
that that's so important that there's people like you in an influential standpoint being able to give that perspective. So that's
Mhm.
brilliant. You must be very tired though. I cannot imagine 6 to 12 and then you're like performing in a high energy off-Broadway show. That's insane. Good for you. I'm amazed.
I've been doing it for 10 years.
Oh my gosh, good for you. Now, the
Yeah.
show has such an exciting, brilliant cast. What is it like to work with Constantine and Joe? And do you have any fun memories from rehearsals or just on stage in general?
Well, I share a dressing room with Connie and Joey. They're amazing. I mean, Joey is like a veteran, and he's been in over 200 films. He's absolutely like insanely funny, and he's so endearing and charming and so kind. Love Joey. I literally sits right here next to me. Connie is so, we call him Constantine Connie. He's so talented. He sings his face down, and it's just wonderful. I mean, like he has so many fans coming every single night from all over the world. And it's just been a real joy to work with them. One memory that I have is Joe, like, during the show, me being in the dressing room, and Joey comes off stage and he changes into a different character because he plays two characters. But he changes, but he has to go on as that same character. So he had to change back into the character, and he was almost late for his entrance. And I was just laughing. I was laughing because I did the same thing.
I love it. I love to hear stories like that because I think it adds so much humanism too. Because you see such a grandiose show in front of you, but then you remember that these are people just like us performing behind.
Yes.
It's like we have these beautiful relationships. I love it.
Yes.
So you've
Yes.
been in, you are a veteran to the Broadway stage as well. Once on this Island, one of my favorite shows of all time, The Lion
Oh,
King. How would you say that those experiences in general have really shaped you as a person and prepared you for this role in Rock and Roll Man?
oh man. So the Lion King, I was the hyena Bunzai. So I was on stilts like that the whole time. And once on the silent, oh my God, I was dancing like crazy. And the schedule was, I mean, it's saying 8 shows, but I was doing so much more. So I was much more exhausted. So they both, and other shows have prepared me to really just be when it comes to, like doing this show. I mean, that's why I'm really grateful that I get to, you know, play Little Richard, because it's more so just me just being and then having the essence of Little Richard. You know what I mean? As opposed to like playing him, or a caricature, right? Um, so I'm really grateful for the experience, molding me and shaping me to trust my instrument enough to just be as opposed to like perform.